welcome back to the Immersive English Podcast, episode number 7. If you've been following along with us, you'll remember the previous episode. I had interviewed a friend of mine, and we were talking about some language learning strategies. One of the things that we talked about was that if you want to learn a language, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You can't be shy. So today I'm going to share with you a story from my personal experience, getting out of my comfort zone and learning a language a little bit anyways. So at the time I was 22, I had just finished college, as we say in the US, or university. I had got my bachelor's degree, and a friend and I, we decided to travel around Europe for 3 months. And we didn't have very much money. So one of the things that we were going to do to save money while traveling was to hitchhike. And now obviously people had warned me that hitchhiking is very dangerous. You shouldn't do it. You're going to get picked up by a serial killer. He's going to take you in the woods and kill you, murder you in the woods, and nobody will ever hear from you again. But I decided to throw caution to the wind and hitchhike anyways. I wanted to try it. I had never done it before, and I wanted to try it. And so my friend and I actually hitchhiked all around Germany for about 1 month, and we only had good experiences. It was only actually really interesting, friendly people that picked us up. And it was a great way for us to practice our German because, everybody's aware of the whole hitchhiking taboo, that it's dangerous. So the person that picks you up, they're trying to make you feel comfortable. You're trying to make them feel comfortable. So you're sitting there making small talk and chatting. And we spoke a lot in German and improved our spoken German quite a bit this way. About 1 month into our journey, we ended up in Berlin, and we were starting to get on each other's nerves. Basically, we had different philosophies about traveling. She was much more free-form, easygoing, go with the flow, and I was sticking to this very arbitrary schedule. I was like, okay, we're going to go to Regensburg for 1 week because I love Regensburg, and then we're going to go to Nuremberg for 2 days, and then we're going to go to Berlin for 1 week. And I was basically choosing these destinations and the amount of time we were going to spend in each one without really any good reason to do so. And she thought it was pretty stupid. In hindsight, I think she was correct. But long story short, she decided to go home. So I asked her if she could do me a favor before she left. Because I looked at the map. We were in Berlin. I noticed that Poland was not far away. And I wanted to go to Poland to meet some relatives that I have there. I have this uncle who did some genealogical research on our family history, and he found relatives of ours that live in southeastern Poland. And at this time, he had already visited them, and he said that I could visit them as well if I wanted to, and that's what I wanted to do. The only problem was that I had dreadlocks, and so that's what I asked my friend to do. I asked her if she could cut off my dreadlocks before I went and visited these relatives of mine. And if you don't know what dreadlocks are, just think of Bob Marley or almost any other reggae singer. They usually have dreadlocks. I had dreadlocks that did not look like Bob Marley's. They were completely disgusting and gross and ugly. People would ask me what I did to get dreadlocks, like how did I get them? And I said I didn't do anything. I just didn't wash or comb my hair for several months, and then eventually I had dreadlocks. All different shapes and sizes, completely raggedy and disgusting, and I looked like a dirty hippie. Actually, I looked like some combination between Jesus and Charles Manson. And I didn't think it would be a good idea to visit my Polish relatives looking like this, because what would they think of, I was representing my family, so I wanted to look at least somewhat clean and normal. So I asked my friend to do me a favor and cut off my dreadlocks. So one night we were sleeping in this park in Berlin. Another thing that we did to save money was sleep in parks sometimes. And I remember we woke up early in the morning and she cut off my dreadlocks. We went and got a cup of coffee, and she ended up going to the train station, and I ended up going to hitchhike to Poland. I attempted to hitchhike to Poland. I had found on the map a rest stop, or like a gas station or a petrol station on the side of the highway that went from Berlin to Poland. So I took the train out to the outskirts of Berlin, close to where this rest stop was. By the time I got there, the sun was setting. It was getting dark, so I didn't really have enough time to hitchhike that day. So I decided to sleep in the forest and then continue the next morning. When I made this decision, I hadn't bothered looking at the weather report, and I also didn't have a tent. So I went into the forest and started setting up my sleeping bag on the forest floor. Just about as soon as I curled into my sleeping bag and started to feel like I was going to fall asleep, it started to rain. And it kept raining and did not stop raining until that morning. It rained all night, and I must have slept about 10 minutes the entire night because I was completely wet. My sleeping bag was filling up with water. I was literally sleeping in a big puddle, and as it continued to rain, the puddle continued to grow and grow and grow, and it was incredibly uncomfortable. Worst night of my life, easily. Luckily, once the sun came up, the rain had stopped, and I walked to my rest stop where I was going to hitchhike. Luckily, I was smart enough to have packed my clothes into plastic bags, so I still had some dry clothes. I changed into my dry clothes, and then I took all my wet clothes in my wet sleeping bag, and I hung them up on this fence at the rest stop there on the highway. And I knew that they were going to take about at least 2 or 3 hours to dry in the sun. So I figured, while my stuff is drying, I'm going to try and hitchhike. So I held out my little sign, and I stood there trying to smile and look happy. My sign that said Poland on it, and have all my stuff drying behind me. I hadn't slept. I looked like a pile of dirty clothes myself. I must have looked completely insane. Long story short, nobody picked me up. I probably waited 3 or 4 hours and not a single car stopped. So I decided this obviously wasn't working. I decided to bite the bullet and buy a train ticket. So I went back to Berlin, bought a train ticket, ended up taking the train to Poland. I was a little nervous about Poland because, unlike Germany, where at that point I had probably about a B1 in German, pretty decent, like intermediate German, I had no Polish. I spoke zero Polish. And so I was pretty nervous about being alone in this strange country where I didn't speak the language at all. But I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the Polish people were really friendly and helpful. If I was lost, I would get out and look at my map. By the way, this was before smartphones. There were no smartphones. We had maps. So I would get out my map and start looking at the map, and people would come over and start helping me immediately. Some people spoke English, and they would try to help me. Not everybody spoke English, so I started picking up some basic Polish, like hello, goodbye, please, thank you, sort of things. And I had made arrangements to meet my family in Krakow. Well, my uncle had arranged it. And so I met this couple in Krakow who, they're actually not my relatives, but they had kind of like a holiday house in the same village where my relatives lived in the Carpathian Mountains in southeastern Poland. But they lived in Krakow, and I met them there. They were really nice. The man worked at Google. He showed me around his workplace at Google. They took me to their house. We had tea and cakes. The whole time I was in Poland, people were having tea and cakes the entire time. I had never really had tea before at this point. I never really drank tea because most Americans just don't drink it. But I thought, when in Rome, everybody's drinking tea, I'm going to drink tea. It was okay. Not my favorite, but the cakes were amazing. Very delicious. So anyways, I had tea and cakes with this nice couple in Krakow. This was a Friday, so they were going to their holiday house for the weekend anyway. So they took me with them and then introduced me to my relatives in this little village. And the couple from Krakow, they spoke English, but none of my family spoke English. Not at all. And so at first the couple was there to kind of introduce me to everyone, but eventually, they went and did their own thing. And I was left with my relatives and mainly with this one woman, this old woman, Stanislava, who was really nice. Zero English. She kept giving me things to eat though, which I understood. And, she showed me, oh, this is your bed. You can sleep here. That was pretty clear, pretty easy to understand. And we started just, trying to communicate. I spent like 2 days with this woman, and I learned that she spoke a little bit of German because she had lived through the war. There were even like bullet holes from the Germans in her house. When the Germans had attacked Poland, and she had learned some German at the time. So a little bit of German, a little bit of Polish from the little Polish I had learned. We just kept trying to communicate, and somehow we made it work. One thing that did help was some homemade cherry vodka that she had made and shared with me. One night we sat there doing shots of cherry vodka and trying to have a conversation. Another thing that we did together was her husband had died, I don't know how many years before, and she went and took me to see his grave, which was kind of a sad but kind of beautiful moment that we shared together. And also went to church with her, and I didn't have any real like nice clothes. I just had dirty old t-shirts and things like that. So she loaned me she gave me this button-up shirt from her husband. It was too big for me, but it was kind of an honor to wear her husband's shirt, and had on my Sunday best when we went to church. So I went to mass in Polish. There's a Polish expression that I learned while I was there, which is "the guest is God." And I really felt like that. They treated me so well. Like this woman, she treated me like I was her grandson. I just felt so welcome. I was related really distantly, but like this couple in Krakow, for example, they weren't related to me at all. And, they were so nice to me as well. So I was just really impressed by how friendly, warm, and hospitable the Polish people were. But there's a German expression which says guests are like fish. After a few days, they start to stink. And so with that in mind, I think I stayed either 2 or 3 days with Stanislava there. And then I decided to leave and continue on my trip and go to Ukraine. That's a story for another day. But just one thing I'd like to mention is that I've told this story to a lot of people, and a lot of people, especially Americans, have similar situations where they have relatives whether it's in Poland or in Germany or in Ireland. They know that they have relatives there, and they're always like, oh yeah, I would love to visit my relatives as well. But, I feel kind of weird about it. Like, I don't know if I should. I would just recommend do it. It can be a really great experience, get out of your comfort zone. And even if that's not your situation, even if you don't necessarily have relatives in other countries, and you just really want to travel, just go out and travel. Like I can guarantee you that if it's something that you really want to do and it's something that you have wanted to do for a long time, just go out and do it. Don't be shy, and you'll have some really great experiences. And if one of your goals is to learn a language or improve your language skills, you will be successful, because traveling is one of the best ways to do that. And as always, if you have any questions or if you want to contact me, you can send me a direct message on Instagram at Immersive Experiences, or you can send me an email. It's info@immersiveexperiences.com, or you can just go to the website immersiveexperiences.com and fill out the contact form there. Until then, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Like what you've heard? You can help us out a lot if you just subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or iTunes. If you are an iTunes user, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes as well. That will help more people find out about the podcast. And while you're at it, why don't you recommend the Immersive English podcast to a friend? Thanks a lot. Okay, now to the listening comprehension questions. Episode 7, Listening Comprehension Questions. Question 1. What does getting out of your comfort zone mean? So what does the expression to get out of your comfort zone mean? Question 2. I said that I had been warned not to do it because it was dangerous, but I decided to throw caution to the wind and do it anyways. What did I decide to do, even though I had been warned it was dangerous? So what did I decide to do, even though I had been warned it was dangerous? Question 3. What favor did I ask of my friend before she went home? So I explained I was traveling with a friend at first, and then she went home, but I asked her to do me a favor before she left. What did I ask her to do? And question 4, why did I ask her to do it? Why did I ask her to do this favor for me? Question 5, I explained that I was trying to hitchhike from Berlin to Poland, and I went to a rest stop where I tried to hitchhike. What is a rest stop? What is a rest stop? Question 6, I explained I had never had tea before going to Poland, but I thought, when in Rome, and I tried tea for the first time. So what does the expression when in Rome mean? What does the expression when in Rome mean? Question 7. I was staying with an elderly Polish woman named Stanislava, and we had some trouble communicating because of a language barrier. But there was a beverage that helped us communicate. Which beverage helped us communicate? Question 8, last question. I went to church in Poland and I said that I was wearing my Sunday best. And my Sunday best, that's just an expression that means some nice clothes. But what exactly was I wearing when I went to church? What was I wearing when I went to church? The answers to these questions are posted on immersiveexperiences.com.